G'day. I want to say welcome to episode 2 of this dialogue about what are the next steps for the church. Last week, if you remember, what I was talking about was the fact that we are shaped by the physical structures and the social structures that we have around us. And as Winston Churchill said, I quoted last week, we build our buildings, then our buildings build us. Or I think he says, thereafter our buildings build us. Anyway, something like that. And as a church, as we talk about where we're going, it's so important for us to step back and say, okay, how did we get here? What shaped these physical and social structures that determine what we call church? Like, for instance, on a Sunday morning, this is where you'll usually see me. For many of us, this is normal, a black stage and a podium and some lights and a bit of a backdrop and a cross. This is, in this modern era, fairly normal. This is the physical structure. Now, ordinarily, on a Sunday morning, this room will be full of chairs. I love the fact that right now it's full of exercise equipment. Two things about that. One is it reminds me what I'm not doing, and the other thing, it reminds me that this room in itself is not sacred. This room is for the benefit of the community, and I love that our auditorium gets turned into a fitness centre many days of the week. But as I look at that stage, one of the things that's important for us, and my hope in just raising this, is to say, okay, why do we have a stage? Why do we have a lectern where it is? Why do we call it a stage? Did you know that having a black stage like that is a comparatively new invention? It was really kicked off by a man by the name of Bill Hybels in America, who took what was then a radical step of moving the church into a cinema. And it became, and he knew that reaching that generation he was trying to reach out to, he needed to have good rock and roll music. And in many ways, the church became a little bit like a well-polished rock performance. We need to have a think about that and say, okay, what does that mean? And Bill Hybels worked very hard to create a church environment that wouldn't put people off. That was some of the wrestles he was having. And so as he thought about how do we create a physical structure and a social structure that reaches people with the good news of what Jesus is and who he is and how he changes everything. So that's what Bill Hybels was doing. For many of us, though, we sort of pick things up and we just kind of implement what he's doing without stopping to think, okay, what does that actually mean for us? Continue to take a walk with me. One of the other realities about church is that increasingly, around the same kind of time, we have started to structure our churches very much like the way we structure our businesses, with boards and CEOs, and sometimes senior pastors are kind of thought of as a CEO. Again, we build our buildings and our buildings build us. What does that assumption mean? If that is kind of true, what does that mean for us as Citywide Baptist Church? Is our eldership a board of a company? Is my job as pastor to be a CEO? Or is it something else? Like I said, I'm not presupposing in this conversation any particular outcome. What I am wanting to say is I want us to take some time to think about what are the social structures, what are the physical structures that shape us. Even the fact that we meet here on a Sunday morning for an hour and a half, and that's what we call church. When we are clearly called to be out in the community. What does that mean? How do we think differently? I am grateful for Bill Hybels because he had the courage to keep thinking And only a matter of about 10 years ago, he did some research and he said, you know what? The way we've built our church structure isn't helping people grow up in their faith. They're not becoming more mature followers of Jesus. And he started to work out, how do we restructure? And I think that's the kinds of questions I want us to be asking, want us to be wrestling with. We have lots of different physical and social structures. I'd love to invite you, if you're not a regular attender here at Citywide, or even if you are and you haven't been here on a Thursday morning, this whole room gets full of like 100 people engaged in craft and community, and it really is, the time out thing that happens here is fantastic. Keep coming with me. I love that that's what our auditorium gets used for. I think that's what church should be. I love another social structure we have as our small groups where we get together. A question for me is the same question that drove Bill Hybels, and it is, how are the physical structures and social structures that we currently have, how are they going at helping grow mature Christians? How are we going at being the community that Jesus dreamed us to be? Do we need to continue as we are, or does something need to change? As I said, this is the question I'm wanting us to be thinking about. Physical and social structures, and how do they shape us? As we come through this is our lobby area. I love that our church used to be a bowling alley. Down there we have a cafe, and we've got space for people to sit around tables and have a cup of coffee and a cappuccino. We've got couches. All of these things are physical structures that help shape us. So again, this is the question this week I'd love us to be wrestling with. How do the physical structures and the social structures of church shape us as a church family? And are they adequate? Are they adequate? I'd love to hear your response to these questions. Just below this video, there's space for comments. I would love you to make comments. Even if you're not part of Citywide Baptist Church, but you're part of a church somewhere else, or you're not even part of a church somewhere else, but you're thinking about, what a church is up to and, how does all this work? I'd love to hear your comments. We want to be in a dialogue about what does the church need to be if we truly are going to be growing people as followers of Jesus Christ.